Welcome to my live. I think we're coming online everywhere. Give it a few more seconds. All right, I think we're live everywhere. Appreciate people joining the live so far. Doing another coding challenge tonight. This one's called Longest Common Prefix. It's an easy problem on Leetcode.com. I'm going to give it a couple more seconds for people to join, and I'm going to jump right into it. Been doing these for a few weeks now, and I don't know, a couple months now. So I'm just happy to keep these going. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. I don't want to spend too much time talking. So tonight we're doing a problem from Leetcode.com called Longest Common Prefix. It's an easy problem. They say it's asked by Amazon, Apple, and Google. And the problem goes as such. Write a function to find the longest common prefix string amongst an array of strings. If there is no common prefix, then return an empty string. So they give a couple examples here. Example 1, there's a string array with flower, flow, and flight. And of course, the common prefix in these three words is FL, the letters F and L. And in example 2, they give a string array that has dog, race car, and car in it. And then the explanation is that there's no common prefix. None of these three words have a common prefix. All have different letters from the start, the first letter. And then it gives some constraints here. The length of, so there only can be maximum 200 words in the list. And then each word in the list can only be 200 characters long. And then all of them consist of only lowercase English letters. So if you're in like an interview scenario, and even in your regular work, like knowing these constraints is pretty important. Will it change the context, the solution to this problem much? I don't think so. But it's always good to know your constraints, of course. So how I like to do these problems, if you've ever joined me before, when I do these problems, I like to think about in my mind first what the solution would be, and then try to take the solution from my mind and convert it to code using some of the common data structures and algorithms that I'm familiar with or have experience with in the past. And so when I look at this problem, in order to know that in order to find a common prefix, so like here's FL, FL, FL. I mean, the common prefix, these all could be the same word. Like what if it was flow, flow, and flow? So like technically you kind of have to check every character in here. I don't know of any way to do this problem where there's some sort of trick to do it a lot faster than literally checking every character in here. Maybe somebody else knows in the comments how to do it. Somebody's asking what language it is. I'm going to use JavaScript for this. But yeah, I don't know if there's any faster way to do this than to check every character. And how I'm thinking about doing it, or at least how I've done it before, is what's called vertical scanning. And so, well, really I want to talk through this first. So how would I check, just in my mind, if I'm just doing this manually, how would I know that it have a common prefix? Well, first I will check every column and see if the characters are equal. So check the first letter of the first word, F, first letter of the second word, F, first letter of the third word, F, and then I will go to the second letter of the first word, L, 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 and then I will go to the third letter of the first word, O, O, and then I get to I, and that's when I'd be my breaking point. And I would know that FL at that point is my longest common prefix. And in this one, as soon as I try D and R, I know that the common prefix is just, there's no common prefix because it's already wrong from here. So I know that I need to do some sort of looping to check each column of each word and then stop whenever there's something that's not equal to when one word when one letter or character in the same column for another word doesn't equal one of the other words, and I just stop. So that's the solution I'm thinking. Is some sort of vertical scanning, basically, where I vertically scan. Sorry, I'm going crazy. Vertically scan each column in a row. And some people have commented in there, something coder or something like that. Yeah, compare the first two for common and compare it against every other word. Yeah, kind of like that. Basically, kind of like that sort of solution. And yeah, appreciate people joining. I'm about to jump right into the solution because this one's supposed to be easy, so I'm not supposed to spend a bunch of time trying to do this. So I'm gonna probably just jump right into it actually. Yeah, and I'm thinking I'm just gonna like vertically scan each column, and I'm gonna stop whenever I see something that's not equal in one of the columns for each word. So every word in each column needs to have the same letter. And then I'm going to populate some sort of result with what I found so far. And I'm going to return it at the breaking point when I don't see something equal anymore. And I think that will probably be the most optimal solution for this. And people might know something easier than that. I don't know anything easier than that. What's up on Instagram, Bracely Dev? What's up, man? Appreciate you joining. And so, yeah, I'm about to jump right into it. Anybody just joining, I got the problem statement up here at the top. You can read that. I'm about to just jump right into this so we can start working through this together and seeing what the result's going to be. So let's convert this to code. What did I say I was going to do first? Is I basically want to loop. I want to loop through. And when I get to code, now I start thinking more about this. Like, how can I loop through? How can I vertically scan all the words at the same time? Looking at the first character of each word, then looking at the second character of each word, third, and so on. Well, what I can do is I could start by just looping through the first character and then taking whatever letters in the first character and comparing that letter to all the rest of the first characters in the rest of the words. So I have to have something to compare to. I have to store, say, what letter am I looking for this time in this column? And so you always can look at the first word and just use that as the reference point to check against the other columns. So hopefully this will make sense as I go through this. So what I'm going to do is first I like to store my result. So I'm going to just say like result equals this. Right now, result is nothing. And I know that eventually I'm going to return a result. So I'm going to go ahead and do that up front. The other thing I want to do is I want to get my first string out of the list of strings. And I can do that by indexing, retrieving it at index 0. And then from there, I want to actually start a loop like I said before. And you're going to see why I saved this first string earlier. So to loop through the first string, I have to kind of look at its length. So I'm going to start at int. I'm going to do a for loop. It's going to start at int I equals 0, where I is less than the length of the first string. It can't go beyond that. And I'm going to iterate I ++ on every single iteration. And then now what do I do here when I get into the first string? Well, what did I say I want to do? I want to look at the first character of the string. Or I want to look at every character of this string in a row, but I want to look at the first one first. So what I can say is I can call this like first string character or char. And to get first string char, I can say first string, and I can use my iterator, my I, to get this character out of it, whatever character I'm on in this loop. So I'm going to start at 0. So I'm going to get first string 0 out into this. And then what I can also, then what I said I was going to do is actually check this character against the rest of the characters. So let me go back to explain to anybody that may be like lost or whatever so far. So I'm looping through this first word. This is the first loop I decided to do. And then I pulled out this character. But now I want to check F against all the first characters in the rest of the array, however long it is, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to move on to L in the first item here. And then I'm going to check L against the second character in the rest of the array. So that is what my logic is doing here without taking too much time to over-explain. I want to kind of stop over-explaining, but I want to do enough explaining so you guys understand. So please let me know in the comments if anything is unclear. I'll try to look, but I'm also trying to coach. I do all this stuff at the same time. So, just give me give me time, you know, and feel free to ask questions later as well, or DM me or whatever. So I got the first character out, and so what I can do is take that first character. I need to compare it against, I'm just copying the loop, but I need to compare it against the rest of the characters in this string array. And so I need to change my iterator. I'm going to make it J. And remember, I don't need to look at the first character. I just need to look at the second one and beyond. So I can make this start at start at 1 instead of 0, because I already pulled out 0 up here. So I only need to look at the second one going forward, because remember, my first one I'm looping through. So then I can say where J is less than the string's length. So the length of how many strings are in my array, like how many do I have to look at? I can't go beyond that. And then I can say J++ to iterate through J. And so here I can actually pull out, and I'm going to call this the Jth. So the Jth, I'm actually going to call this N to make it a little less confusing for people. I'm going to call this N actually instead of J. And I'm going to say the nth. Like if you ever heard that concept of nth, something to the nth power, where n is a variable. So I'm going to say the n. So up here I had the first string character. I'm going to say this is the nth string character, because this is all the rest of the characters in the string array. And so to get the nth one, I'm using my iterator here, and I'm going to pull out the character. Sorry, I'm going to pull out the string where I'm going to pull out the string where it equals n, because I want to look at that string, and I want to look at the I character of that string. So I know this might be a little confusing, but basically in my list of strings, what this code does is it says get the one of these strings in the rest of the array. That's n. Whatever n is at is where is which one of these I choose. And then inside of the one I choose, pull the right character out, which is I. So that's why we have this like thing where it's saying like strings pull the nth string and then pull the ith character out of that string, because this is I is where we're at in our first array. And so from there, what did I need to do? I need to make sure every single nth character matches our first character, so I would know that there is a common prefix as I go down the string, and I will stop when it does not equal. So what I can do actually is I can set up a variable, a boolean, to say is or I can say is characters, I don't know, I'm just gonna say is common. That's kind of ugly, but I'm gonna say is common true. And then I'm gonna basically, and you'll see why I'm holding on to this later. I'm gonna say if first string character does not equal to nth string character, then I'm going to basically say is common equals to false. And so what this does is this says whatever character I'm on, I'm going to assume is common is true. And then I'm going to loop through all the rest of the strings in the array. If one of them doesn't equal to the first character, then it's not common. It's not part of the prefix. Or I could say is part of prefix, actually, is a better way to name this. And so I know if one of them doesn't match, then it's not part of the prefix. And so then when I get down here, what I can do, it's still inside of my loop, is I can say if is part of prefix, then what I want to do is my result, I want to add, you can do plus equal in JavaScript to add something to it, to my result string. I want to add this to my prefix in longest common prefix. So I'm actually probably going to call this, instead of result, I'm going to call it prefix. It's a little bit more clear. Prefix. And so I'm going to add this to my prefix. Else, I can just break. And what break will do in JavaScript, break will break out of the next parent loop. And so at this point, if it's not part of the prefix, if I found that it's not part of the prefix, then I could just break out of the whole loop of the problem and just go return my result, which I did rename that to prefix. So that's basically the answer there. What all did I do? I set up a prefix. This is my answer and I initialized it to an empty string. And then I put the first string into first string. I just made really I could make this probably like a const, I think. Yeah. And then I took first string and I looped through each character in it. And then I take out the character that I'm currently on. I set up a variable to keep track of if all the characters at that index are equal. And so then I look at then I loop through the rest of my strings besides my first string. And I check if I pull out the character at that nth string. And then I check whether it's equal or not. If it's not, then I set this variable to false. And then later, after I get out of this loop, if I haven't set this to false, that means all these characters were equal. And so then I add it to my prefix. And if I get to a point where the characters are not all equal, then I know I can break out of my array. That's my breaking point that I talked about earlier. So, yeah, I mean, that looks like a good solution to me. If you're in an interview scenario, you'll probably have to talk through this solution. You probably wouldn't even be able to run it. Sometimes you won't be able to run it. Some companies don't let you run it. Some companies do. I think most companies probably do let you run it. But some companies just want you to talk through the code and don't want you to run it, or they want you to like actually like go through the code and like write down the variables and manually step through the code at every step. But here I'm going to do that, but I'm going to go a little bit out of order because I want to get the solution a little faster for everybody. And then I want to go back and I'm going to like walk through it. I'll walk through it like manually. So I've just walked through the code and it looks like it makes sense to me. So what I'm going to do, Leetcode allows you to run this. I'm going to run the code and just see if it works. And yeah, let's see if it works. Yeah, it worked on the first try. Lucky me. So what this Leetcode does is take case 1 and 2 from over here, which was flower, flow, and flight, and it was dog, race car, and car in example 2. It takes those two cases and just runs the automation on them. And basically, I got both of the cases right. I got FL for the first case like I expected. For the second case, I got just the empty string because there's no common prefix between these. So yeah, that worked out pretty well. So now that I've gotten to that point, and usually I wouldn't do that beforehand, but I just want to get to this point so I can repost this video later for people and it's not too long. But in an interview scenario, like in a regular life scenario, if you had to code something like this, hopefully you wouldn't. You would just run it, test it out. You would just you could do trial and error. You should get used to reading through your code and double checking it manually. But normally you can, you're working at your own speed most of the time, and you can, or you're working at a lot slower speed than an interview. And so you can run your code, pretty drastically as many times as you want. But in an interview scenario, you likely have to talk through the code first, manually trace it, even if you are allowed to run it. And some companies will make you code in the notepad that you can't run. So yeah, they expect you to get the right code, which can be an advantage sometimes because sometimes your code can be broken and they don't even see it. But other times it can be a disadvantage because you might not be able to tell what's wrong because you don't have anything compiling. You don't get any extra syntax highlighting either, stuff like that. So Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, we got to a good point with that running. I'm going to submit it against Leetcode as well to see what my results are against all the Leetcode users. So it only be 18% of in time complexity, and it'd be 38% in memory complexity. And so let's talk about the complexity real quick. I'm gonna go back out of this, back into. But I did. When you run it, when you submit it with Leetcode, it runs it against a bunch of other test cases. So it's pretty solid that you got the problem right at that point. It runs it against more than those couple too. But the one thing I did want to talk about that I didn't mention is the big O complexity of this solution, which this one, for an easy problem, this one actually kind of has a harder big O complexity to determine. So time complexity is based on how optimal is your solution based on the size of your input. How well does your algorithm perform as the input substantially grows? And how does your algorithm scale with the input? Does it run terribly when there's a lot of input, like when the input size grows to 1 million, 1 billion, whatever? Or does it still perform optimally even as the input grows? Our input here is a list of strings, and each string has its own length. And like I said before, the only way I know to do this problem is you have to check every character you have to check every string in the list. In worst case, you have to check every single character in every string. So let's call that S. It's called S equals the sum of all characters in every string. And big O complexity is worst case, not best case. So you calculate, it is a notation to describe your algorithm at its worst case, how it will perform at its worst case in reference to your input. I'm going to call our input S. And so this in time complexity, this algorithm is notated as big O of S, where S is the sum of all characters. Because worst case, I would have a string of strings that all have the same characters. What if I had 1 million strings that all had 1 million characters in them and all of them were the same? Well, in order to get the prefix, I'd have to check every single string in every single character in every single string. So worst case, that's the time complexity. Space complexity is how much actual space I used in reference to the size of my input. Well, I did use some space here to save these variables, but it wasn't tied to the size of my input, because I set up these two. The only ones that last for the whole function are these two, and then these are wiped out every time I loop through here. So these are basically like wiped out, and then these are wiped out every time I loop through here. And so I'm not using like a hash map or not even an object, or I'm not using anything that's growing to the size of my input. Everything, as I process it, everything is basically getting wiped out. The only thing that's kind of growing to the size of the input is maybe this prefix thing, but like just setting a string variable is not normally part of big O notation. It's usually when you're using some sort of data structure, like a storage data structure, like a hash map or a set or an object. So in this case, our big O complexity is big O of 1 or constant space complexity. And I can't spell right now. And so yeah, that's basically solution right there. The only other thing I missed doing is, which I might go ahead and do that now since I have gotten to the solution, for the people that just want to see that first. And it worked. I ran it already. And so a lot of times if you get an interview to help some of you guys that are new to this, sometimes the interviewer will ask you to run a test input through the code manually without running it. You may not even have a runner, like I said earlier. So to do that, what I do is I usually, and maybe some others don't do this, but I usually keep track of all my variables in a comment. So first string. So I just look at all the variables I have. I have this one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace through example problem. And I'm going to try to do a quick one because I don't want to be on here all day. But yeah, and then I need nth character string. Basically, find all your variables. This will help you keep track of what the state is of this algorithm in your mind as you go. And so let's find an easy, a quick one to do. This one actually ain't that bad to do, actually, because it's only 2 letters. So the prefix is only 2 letters long. So let's say this is our input. Strings, or strs strings, is going to have this in it. And let's just trace through every line of code. So when we get to line 18, the prefix is going to be just blank. So I'm going to put that in there. And when we get to first string, it's going to take 0. It's going to take the string at index 0, which is flower. So let's put that there. We get here. We're going to loop through the first string, which is flower, with the iterator called I. And we're going to start at 0. And so then we're going to set first string character to first string at index 0 because I equals 0 right now. And what is that? That is F. The character is F because it's the 0 index of flower. So that's what this line is. So that's why I put that here. And then this is true. So this is just getting set to true just straight up. And then now we're going to go into this second loop where n equals 1 first. And then we're going to set this in character string equal to string. And maybe I need to keep track of n and I, actually. Yeah, probably need to keep track of n and I. This is a little bit much, but I'm going to keep track of n and I as well. Just to help. I usually don't keep track of the iterators because it just becomes a lot, but let's do it. So yeah, n. And then we're going to find the string. Then on this line, we find the string we find the nth string, which is 1. So the nth string is actually flow. It's at the index 1. This is 0. This is 1. So the nth string is flow. But then we want to get the ith character out of that string. This in JavaScript, this is how you get the character out. If you have a string of arrays, you get the array, you get the string out of the array. And then here you get the character out of the array. And sorry if I'm missing comments and stuff like that. This is a lot to go through and try to read at the same time. But I love it. Please comment, talk to each other, answer each other questions, please. And thank you for the comments. A lot of smart comments I'm kind of like gazing at to the side. But anyway, so we need to get the ith character out. And the ith character, I is 0. So we're getting the F out of this. So nth string character is F. And now we go to this line like we need to do. We need to check to see if the nth character string equals the first character string, which it does. So we don't set this to false. So this thing stays true. And then we come back basically back up to the top of this loop. And so then when we come to the top of this loop, then wait, no, let me see. No, actually. Okay, yeah, we're here. Oh, yeah, we got to check every single. Yeah, we come back to the top of this loop, and then we iterate this to 2. So I'm already getting confused. Iterate this to 2, and then now we're going to look at here. We're going to find a string at n2, which is flight. So now this is flight, but remember we need to get the vertical scan and we need to get 0 character out of flight, which is still F. Is first string equal, so is this equal to this? Yes, so we don't set is part of the prefix to false. Is part of the prefix is still true. And so now we come back to the top of this loop. We've come to the end of strings. Well, this gets iterated, sorry. And then now n is greater than string length because the string length is only 3. Wait, hold on. Yeah. No, it has to be less than the length. So yeah, it's equal to 3, so it can't be equal to 3. So yeah, we break out of this loop here. And then we go down here. Remember, we never ended up setting this to false, so this is true. So we add the first string character to our prefix, which is F. So now our prefix has F in it. And I know this may be kind of hard to go through. Hopefully you guys are understanding this. But yeah, this is how it works. And so anyway, then we come back up to the top of this. Now we come back up to the top of this loop, and I promise I'm almost done with this. And then I gets iterated again. So I is going to be 1. And then we're going to find the first character in the first string. What is the one character, or the character at the one index? Character at the one index is L. So now we're going to put L here because we're on this line. Is part of the prefix, stays true. N is getting set back to 1 because we're just coming back to this loop again. And then we're going to look at the string at 1, the character at 1. So what's the string at 1 is flow. What's the character at 1? It is, the string at 1, and then the character at 1 is L. String at 1 is flow, character at 1 is L. So then we're going to say this is L is first string character equal to nth string character. That's our code right here. Yes. So we're saying is it not here? So then the opposite of that is yes. So we don't actually go into this code. This remains true. And then we loop back up to the top of this again where we iterate in. So we're looking for the string at n and the character at 1. The string at 2, n, is this, flight. And the character at 1 is L again. So this stays L. We basically go through this same logic again. We don't change this again. We come back up to the top. We iterate n to 3. That breaks us out of this loop. Then we come down here again and say, is part of prefix still true? Yes, part of prefix is true. Add to our answer to our prefix the first string character. It is L. It's supposed to be L. And so here in our prefix we add L. And so now we come back up to the top of this, and I'm not gonna go through all of this again, but well, maybe I will, because this will show where the cancel point is. So now we come back, we up here again, we iterate I to 2. And then we're going to look at what is in 2 for the first string. 0, 1, 2 is O. So then now this is O. And so then we get, is part of prefix true? Yes. And then we get into here. We're going to set n back to 1. So we're looking for the string at n, which is 1. So we get flow. And we're going to look for character 2, which is O again. So we're going to say this is O. Its first character equal nth string character, yes. So then we don't change this because it's missing this condition. We go back to the top of our end loop. And I know this is a lot, but yeah, you might have to do this in the interview for real. Like I've had to do it before, and I've made people do it before when I interview them. So, and it may be something you have to do in your job. Like you may have to trace through, you may not be the code that's simple. It may be code that's simple. It may not be this type of problem. But it may be something that you definitely need to do to debug some issue. So it's good to know how to have these skills and know how to do this. Because sometimes running the code, you can't figure out what's going on. But anyway, so then we iterate n. And so then n is going to be flight. And we're looking for the character at 2 in flight. The character at 2 in flight is I. So then we get I here. And now we start to come into a problem. So now we're saying, is first string character not equal to nth string character? First string character not equal to nth string character? No, it's not. So then we get in here where we turn this to false because they're not equal anymore. So then we actually turn this to false. I don't know what the heck that was. And so once this goes to false, and we are done with our, then we iterate this, we get to 3. When n equals 3, then it breaks this condition, so we break out of this whole loop. We get down here. Now this is false. So we set it to false up here. Now it's false, and we go into our break. We didn't add it to the prefix because O, I, it doesn't equal. So our prefix is only FL. And I've already populated our prefix with FL. So now that we break here, what break does is breaks out of the parent loop in JavaScript, breaks out of there. Now we just return our prefix. Our prefix is FL. That was the answer to our problem. FL is the longest common prefix in this problem. And so yeah, that's it. And this I probably ran this video a little bit too long, but I'm glad I did because I get to explain kind of more of this stuff to everybody. These coding assessments do suck, but they are coming prevalent in interviews, especially if you lean toward trying to go for a big company. If you go for a larger company, you're really most likely run into these, and people run into these and don't even know they exist, and you get crushed, and it sucks. So if you stay with like mid-sized and small companies, you probably can get away with not doing them and just like ask them, say, hey, do y'all do Leetcode? Do y'all do coding algorithms? And you probably can get by with not doing it. There's been interviews where they don't do them. Some companies choose not to do them. But if you go for Google, Facebook, the FANG companies, Google, Facebook, Netflix, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, if I didn't say that one already, Meta, they're definitely going to ask these. I promise you that. They're always going to ask these. And then some of the mid-tier companies like Stripe, I think Stripe actually doesn't ask them. But I don't know, Airbnb, Uber, Twitter, I don't know. Some of these big companies, these household name companies, they copy Google. Everybody copy Google, and they start asking these. So it's good to at least get some of these easies under your belt so you kind of know what they are. But some people refuse to do them. Some people just say, I'm just gonna go for companies that don't do them, and that's 100% valid. So anyway, appreciate people jumping on and watching on all the channels. I'm on Facebook, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, live all at the same time. When I do these, I try to do at least one a week. I'm going to try to move up to 2 a week. Appreciate people asking me to do more of these. I hope it helps people. I don't see people doing them a lot. And so please follow me, support me so I can keep doing these. I can keep spending my time doing it. Helps me too, and I like to help the community, and it helps me too. But of course, the more support I get, the easier it becomes for me to do them. And so yeah, follow, share, and do all that good stuff. And yeah, I'll see y'all in the next video. If you want to DM me and let me know what you want to see next, just let me know. Appreciate y'all.